They called her the Virgin Queen Gloriana, the untouchable monarch. But behind the iron will and the glittering crown was a woman who paid an immense price for her power. This is the story of Elizabeth I, a queen who learned that to rule meant to be utterly, devastatingly alone. From the moment she was born, Elizabeth's life was a masterclass in survival. Her mother, Anne Boleyn, was executed when she was just 2 years old. Declared illegitimate, she was cast out of the royal court, her very existence a political inconvenience. Imagine being a child, watching your world crumble, learning that love and security could be snatched away in an instant. This was Elizabeth's first and perhaps most brutal lesson: trust no one. People were pieces on a chessboard, and even family could be your most dangerous enemy. Her teenage years were no easier. She was implicated in plots, interrogated, and even imprisoned in the Tower of London by her own half-sister, Queen Mary. Every day was a test of her nerve. A single misstep, a single poorly chosen word could mean the executioner's block. It was in the cold, damp stone of the tower that Elizabeth's resolve hardened into steel. She learned to guard her thoughts, to present a mask of calm obedience while her mind raced, calculating every move. She learned that to show fear was to invite attack, and to show affection was to offer a weapon to her enemies. When she finally ascended the throne at 25, the kingdom she inherited was a mess bankrupt, divided by religion and threatened by powerful neighbors like Spain and France. The men of her council, seasoned politicians, all expected to control the young, inexperienced queen. They pressured her relentlessly to marry, to provide an heir, and to let a husband rule in her stead. But Elizabeth refused. She had seen what marriage did to queens. Her sister Mary's marriage to Philip of Spain had been a disaster for England. She knew that a husband would become her master, and she was determined to be mistress of her own destiny and of her country. She famously declared, "I will have but one mistress here, and no master." This decision was the cornerstone of her reign, but it came at a tremendous personal cost. By remaining single, she defied every convention of her time. She used her unmarried status as a diplomatic tool, dangling the prospect of marriage to foreign princes for years, playing them against each other to England's advantage. It was brilliant political maneuvering, but it also meant a life without the intimacy and companionship of a partner. While she flirted and danced with favorites like Robert Dudley, her childhood friend, she could never truly let her guard down. Her love for Dudley was real and deep, but she knew marrying him was impossible. It would have caused a political firestorm. So she kept him close, but always at arm's length, a constant, painful reminder of the personal happiness she had to sacrifice for her crown. This was the price of being untouchable. You could be adored from afar, but never truly held. Her court was a glittering, glamorous place, filled with music, poetry, and fashion. But beneath the dazzling surface, it was a viper's nest. Elizabeth was surrounded by spies, ambitious nobles, and smiling enemies. Everyone was vying for her favor, and she knew that any of them could turn traitor if it suited their interests. She had to be constantly vigilant, reading people, deciphering motives, and anticipating betrayal. Think about the mental fortitude that requires. To live every single day knowing that the people who bow to you, who write poems in your honor, might also be plotting your downfall. Her intelligence network, led by the formidable Sir Francis Walsingham, was one of the most sophisticated in Europe. It had to be. They uncovered plot after plot against her life, many orchestrated by her cousin Mary, Queen of Scots. The dilemma of Mary, Queen of Scots, haunted Elizabeth for decades. Mary was a Catholic with a strong claim to the English throne, making her a magnet for Catholic conspiracies. For nearly 20 years, Elizabeth kept Mary under house arrest, unwilling to execute a fellow anointed queen and a relative. But as the plots grew more dangerous, Elizabeth was forced into an impossible choice. In 1587, with irrefutable evidence of Mary's involvement in a plot to assassinate her, Elizabeth finally signed the death warrant. It was a decision that reportedly tormented her. She had to kill her own cousin to secure her throne and her country. This act, while politically necessary, isolated her further. It showed the world that to protect her power, she would forgive almost nothing. The Iron Crown demanded an iron heart, and with every such decision, a piece of her own humanity was chipped away. As she grew older, the loneliness became more profound. Her old, trusted advisors and friends began to die off. Dudley, Walsingham, Cecil, the men who had been with her from the beginning were gone. She was surrounded by a new generation of ambitious young men who saw her not as the vibrant young queen she once was, but as an aging relic, a monument to be managed. They called her Gloriana, and her later reign was seen as a golden age. England defeated the Spanish Armada in 1588, a legendary victory that secured the nation's independence and cemented Elizabeth's status as an iconic leader. It was a moment of supreme triumph. Yet, even in that glorious moment, the Queen stood alone on the peak of her power. The victory was hers, but so was the burden of command. The cheering crowds couldn't see the solitary woman who had sacrificed love, family, and personal peace for their safety and prosperity. In her final years, she was said to have suffered from bouts of deep melancholy. The weight of a lifetime of vigilance, sacrifice, and solitude pressed down on her. She had built a strong, prosperous, and confident England, but she had built it on the foundation of her own loneliness. She had been a mother to her people, but had no children of her own. She was married to her kingdom, a union that left no room for a husband. The image we have of Elizabeth I is one of strength, intelligence, and unwavering authority. And she was all of those things. But we often forget the quiet suffering behind that public image. Being untouchable meant she could not be controlled, but it also meant she could not be comforted. It meant being the ultimate authority, but also the ultimate outsider. The price of her glorious reign was a life lived in gilded isolation, a heart protected by layers of armor,